Greetings, everyone. My name is Kate Rademacher, and we're here with Writing for Your Life. This is our second Tuesday discussion group for spiritual writers. And for those of you who are new to Writing for Your Life is a large community that provides support to spiritual writers, including resources, and community. And so I think this is one of the most wonderful opportunities we have to be in community with one another. I really want to thank and welcome our speaker for tonight, JoLanda Rogers. And JoLanda has been a friend of Writing for Your Life for a long time and a wonderful collaborator, both to Brian Elaine, who founded Writing for Your Life, and myself. I took over management and oversight of Writing for Your Life several years ago, and it's just been such an honor and privilege to get to know JoLanda in that capacity. And I'm really grateful that she's going to be talking with us tonight about trauma-informed writing, and particularly how we can approach this as spiritual writers. So, JoLanda, thank you again for being here and welcome. I know you're going to introduce yourself more as you get started, but just want to say again, thank you for being here and for talking to us about such an important topic.
Thank
Oh, and
you.
just sorry, before I hand it over to you, one more housekeeping thing. I'm sure JoLanda will say this as well, but we're gonna have time for Q&A and discussion. So as we're going, please go ahead and feel free to put your questions or comments in the chat. And then when we get to the Q&A, we'll also have an opportunity for people to come off mute and ask questions and engage directly with JoLanda. So please be holding your questions if you want to speak into the space at that time. All right, over to you, JoLanda. Thanks again.
Okay. Good evening. I am incredibly excited to share this space with all of you for so many reasons. As Kate has mentioned, I've been a friend of Writing for Your Life for many years, and more importantly, a friend of Kate. And tonight we are going to talk about the power of narrative for post-traumatic growth. So I'm going to share my screen. And as she mentioned, please feel free to just kind of jot down any questions or things that come up. I am going to save time intentionally so that we can talk together. Okay. The other thing that I would invite you to do is to engage with us in the chat. So I may invite you to put a 1 or a 2 or a thumbs up. Like, this is our space to co-create together for the next 40, 56 minutes. Okay. Um, One of my mentors and favorite authors, Dr. Terry Wardle, he often encourages his listeners to take note more than you take notes. What does that mean exactly? It is simply allowing all of who you are to be fully present in this moment. Um, the information that I'm sharing will be available in the replay, so don't worry about missing anything. Pay more attention to what rises to the top of your soul. Pay more attention to what you feel in your body. And perhaps as an aspiring author or a second-time author, survivor, or someone called to help others on the journey to post-traumatic growth, I want to invite you to take note. Some of you may know me. I see some people that I love in the room. And so thank you so much for being here. Before we dive in, for those of you who do not know me, I want to share a little bit why this work is so close to my heart. I am a licensed psychotherapist, a business therapist and strategist, which means I spend a lot of my time walking with people through the hard places, both in life and in business, really helping them discover like what healing and growth can look like. I'm also the author of a Pocket Message Trilogy and several other works that focus on healing and transformation. That particular work is written to survivors, responders, and perpetrators of child sexual abuse. So writing has always been a part of my own healing journey. And it's also one of the ways that I've been able to make sense of my story. When I founded Talk Consulting, I created some programs called Sweet Girl Heal, which is a sexual trauma program. And I promise you all of this will make sense as we continue to talk about writing for post-traumatic growth. Also, Journey on Demand, my author lab. And each of these came from a desire to really meet people right where they are. Finally, and what also feels most important in this space is that I am a partner publisher and I help survivors, leaders, visionaries bring their stories to life in book form. Because I know that our words don't just heal us, but they heal others. And I'm curious tonight what words are sitting in your soul that have the power to help someone else heal. So, as I'm talking to you today, it's very important that I'm not just speaking from the posture of a clinician or a strategist or an author, but I'm talking to you from someone who knows firsthand how writing can be a lifeline for yourself and for others. So, post traumatic growth, it isn't just a buzzword, which I sent over to Kate in the blurb about tonight. Sometimes we hear so many words come up in pop culture that they lose the weight and the gravity of them. Post traumatic growth, it really is the quiet and the courageous process of becoming. Storytelling is one way that each of us can access that growth because writing doesn't just name what happened, it also helps us to understand it, to integrate it, and sometimes to even reimagine our story. If you are still here, you get to determine how the story ends. 6 years ago, when I published my first work on sexual trauma, I was in a very different place than as a writer, as a survivor, and as a clinician. And looking back, I can see how my words held so much pain and possibility. And I'm going to share some of them with you tonight. Today, however, my voice is different. Because healing is ongoing. It is a journey. There's always more to say, and you get to say it. Yesterday, one of our authors released her book called Pause, and it's a book and a journal. Whenever people work with us and they publish their books, I run by their house to purchase the first copy. True story. I've taken flights to purchase first copies of books. And the power of this book is that she talks about rest, intentional rest. And today, as we talk about writing along with our nervous system, versus writing against it, we are going to take an invitation to pause because that is compassion and respect for your story, for my story. I want you to know that it's safe to be here. So before I move further, I want to invite everyone to this simple breath anchor, and that is simply to inhale, I am safe now, breathing in for 4, and to exhale, I am here. So I'm going to count, and all you have to do is breathe in these truths. I am safe. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to exhale for 6. I am here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's so important that our exhale is longer than our inhale. And that is because it allows our nervous system to fully begin to settle. So, as I move throughout more of the content, if you feel yourself becoming dysregulated, uneasy, unsettled, I want to invite you back to this truth that you really are safe and you are here. And my world is better because of it. So earlier I mentioned about taking note and about being present. What I also want to talk about is the power of storytelling because it is one of the most powerful tools that we have for healing. When we tell our stories, there are a few things that happen, right? Number one, we gain awareness because we start to see patterns. We can name what was once unnamed and also understand ourselves in a new way. Naming matters. Storytelling also opens the door to self compassion. If you are not in a place on your journey where you can offer self compassion, then I strongly encourage you to pause on leaning into trauma writing. Self compassion matters. When we put our experiences into words, we often begin to soften toward ourselves, to realize that we did the best that we could with what we had. The other thing is that it gives us hope. When we can write about the hardest moments, we begin to see that pain doesn't have the final word. It did have a word at one point in time, but it's not the final one. Our story continues and it holds light, and it also sometimes holds darkness. The most important thing I want you to take away from the power of storytelling is that it brings transformation, not only for you, but it also brings transformation for your readers. And the depth of that transformation is felt when we as writers are able to write along with our nervous system versus against it. Because writing doesn't just record what happened, but it reshapes how we carry it. I love Brene Brown because she often says, "What's the story you're telling yourself?" All of us as writers, we have an opportunity to rewrite that story. And that allows us to move from silence into voice, from isolation into connection, and from mere surviving into becoming. Drop a one in the chat if that sounds like something you long to do. Something that you feel like would move your soul just to make that shift from silence to voice, isolation to connection, surviving to becoming. It is time. And as we talk about time, so many people ask me, they reach out for writing consultations and they're like, "JoLanda, but when is the right time to write? Tell me when." The truth is, there is no perfect time. There's only your time. The time for me is going to be different from Kate, different from Pamela. Your time is going to be your time. And sometimes writing is for you alone. It doesn't have to become a book. This is something that I always encourage people to remember, that writing doesn't equal publishing. It can simply be the safe release of words that don't need to stay bottled up. And after you refine that writing, it can become some of the most powerful content, not only for you, but for what I like to call your perfect readers. And those are the people who are waiting to hear your story. Signs you may be ready. You can feel the weight of unspoken words. You long for clarity more than closure, and you feel curious about what's still inside. If we write with an expectation for a particular person to respond or to understand us, that may be an indicator that your writing for now is for you. There are certain things that belong in our journal, and then there are some things that must go from our journal to print because someone is waiting on it. There's also this component that sometimes we just aren't ready. Writing should not re traumatize you. It is more important to be present than to power through. If you are writing and it starts to re-traumatize you to a point of dysregulation, that's a great time to pause, settle in, remind yourself that I am safe and I am here. Let's talk about when writing becomes publishing. How do we know when that happens, when the writing moves beyond you? Because publishing doesn't mean that you're done healing. I know there's so many books out there, so many authors out there that they put the book out and boom, they are healed. They are walking in this glorious perfection. And many of us are like, what is wrong with me? I wrote my book and oh my word, that still hurts, right? Publishing doesn't mean healing. It means that your words now have the power to invite someone else into a healing journey. You may also notice that your story no longer feels so raw and like it could be used as a resource. For me, that felt really true when I decided to publish. My words became a bridge for others, but I did not have the access to this awareness of post-traumatic growth. Um, I was battling on whether or not I would share this with you guys, but this feels like a safe space. Drop a one in the chat if this is a safe space so I know that it's okay to say out loud what I'm going to say. Oh gosh, I love it. Thank you. Okay, when I published those books 6 years ago, true story, I wrote them, you guys, I did not go back and read them. I sent them off to my editor. It was like, it is out. I am done. No, thank you. It took time for me to go back and read it. That was a really good indicator. Did not know then. What I know now is that, maybe we should wait a bit until we can read and have a safe level of disconnection, not dissociation, but a safe level of distance from the impact of the trauma. But my words actually became a bridge for others, and that's where storytelling became sacred. After I published those books, a friend said to me that you you talk about your experiences like a story told and not like a life lived. That conversation shifted my writing, it shifted the way I lived, and it produced this prayer in me that I said before I jumped on tonight, that I say before I write, before I do seminars. And the prayer is simply, Lord, let my story take me, but not overtake me. Let it move me toward compassion and away from contempt. Let my words reflect a life lived, not just a story told. And let truth bring transformation. That is my anchor, because your story should always take you. It should not overtake you. When we move to a position where we no longer connect to the depth of our stories, that might be an invitation to heal another layer. There should always be something in you that has honor for all of your experiences. And that honor should be able to be present without drowning you. Okay? When we've had hard experiences, oftentimes we will go to self contempt or others' contempt. The healing journey helps us start to connect with compassion. And then finally, our experiences must connect like a life lived and not like you're reading someone else's story. Can you touch it? Can you feel it? And I wonder, what will your prayer be? I want to invite all of you to consider an anchor for your soul as you write to heal. I want to talk about traffic light writing. With traffic light writing, this is kind of my idea around how our nervous system works along with our writing. I'm going to break that down for you. Just like a traffic light, our nervous system has three states that show up in our words. So when it's green, the words, they flow, they are steady, they are connected, they are reflective. You know those days when you just sit down and you start pouring out on the paper and the words just flow, right? And then we have those yellow states, which is the fight or flight. In those moments, our words are often urgent, they're pressured, sometimes they're a little restless. When our nervous system moves into red with our writing, we will feel the freeze, where writing feels heavy, we feel numb, and our words are silent. Writer's block, anyone? Right when you get to the point where you know there is more and everything goes away. When we write with our nervous system, we can notice these states and adjust with compassion. When we write against it, we often push too hard, and that can shut us down or re traumatize us. When we are writing and we begin to feel our nervous system move from green, shift into yellow, and go to red, that is a moment to pause, find our anchor, take a break, and return to our writing. To help you kind of see this in action, I'm going to share a work that is not yet published, but is a part of a collection of poetry for post traumatic growth that I'm working on, and it will be for clinicians to support their clients. This piece, however, does include themes of childhood trauma, and it may stir some strong emotions. So I want to invite you to take care of yourself as you listen. So if you need to pause, if you need to breathe, if you need to step away, I promise we will still be here until 8 o'clock. Okay? Take care of yourself. But as I'm reading this, I want you to um, listen for the traffic light changes. Notice when the words sound yellow, urgent, panic. Notice when it sounds red, heavy, frozen. And I want you to notice what's also absent. And then we'll walk through it together. So, if everyone would just please take a really good deep cleansing breath with me in for four, one, two, three, four, and exhale for six, one, two, three, four, five, six. And if those breathing stints are too long, you can always do a three and a five as well. The goal is just to make sure that the exhale is longer. So, give me 1 second. Oh, that it's hilarious, you guys, because I pulled up everything, all of my notes, but the poem. What is my nervous system saying? Oh my goodness, I'm kidding. Give me 1 second to pull it up. Um, Drop a feeling word in the chat for me. What do you notice? How are you feeling? I am feeling. What's happening for you? Okay. What do you notice? If anybody, is it safe if it's being recorded? I'm okay with that. And I'm going to stay out the comments so I don't get distracted. Okay. I love it. I love it. Okay. And I'll share my screen again after I read this for you. The soil cycle. A spiraling stairwell led to our basement washroom, perhaps better described as our basement soil room. It feels damp like dull humidity after a summer's night rain. It reeks of mildew and mothballs. Light only comes from the hopper windows that view the backyard, where you can see the feet of people walking by. No one walks by today, so it is dark. The floor underneath my feet feels like frosty concrete in winter, and it provides a welcome distraction from the present. Heart pounding, stomach twisting, palms sweating, and chills. The cycle begins, ice cold and firm. The top of the washer feels like a surgical table in the operating room as I slowly drift from consciousness. Tears soak innocence before it is rinsed away, a delicate garment mixed with a musty, heavily soiled load, set to the highest agitation. The spin cycle twists, pain, pleasure, and emotions, choking my comprehension of reality. Thoughts race, my throat tightens, trembling, tingling, suddenly numb, paralyzed in fear. The washer locks as the clothes settle. I cannot move. Stillness breaks the silence with these words: shh, don't tell. Take a really good deep cleansing breath. Know what you are feeling. And let's talk about how that small piece illustrates writing with and against our nervous system. When we write with our nervous system, you can see how it shows up in the lens of this traffic light writing. And I want you to know that that was kind of heavy. Just want to remind everybody that you are safe and you are here right now, and so am I. So isn't that a blast? When we begin to write about hard things, it is very easy for our minds, our bodies, and our souls to feel like we are there and then instead of here and now. So, we're going to look at how the traffic light system shows up. The piece I just read is a part of the collection of poetry that I told you will be released soon. But it actually starts to, so sorry. Gotcha. Um, Notice when you see yellow in the writing, and also notice when you see red in the writing. When the yellow comes, you can hear some of the language starts to shift. As it goes to red, you hear the body sensations, the cadence picks up. And in this particular piece, you don't necessarily hear the green. Now, that is not always a bad thing. And the reason why it isn't is because when we are writing, green does not necessarily present itself in the story. And that absence matters. It matters because the act of writing is the green. When we put words to what feels unspeakable, our nervous system is actually reclaiming the space to create, to reflect, and to hold what once felt unbearable. That is writing with your nervous system. You begin to not only own your story, but heal your story, and you can share your story. So, again, although the green doesn't necessarily appear, the very act of writing it is the green. So, let me hit this yellow again. You hear heart pounding, stomach twisting, palms sweating, chills, thoughts racing, throat tightening, trembling. Those are yellow, that fight and flight. Notice when feeling words like that begin to come up with your writing, and be aware if you need to pause in between your narrative. These are fight flight sensations. The nervous system sounding the alarm and preparing us to either escape for defense. Even the language is kind of jagged and it's really fast and it's visceral. The red zone, particularly in that piece, that's suddenly numb, paralyzed in fear, the washer locks. It is the freeze response, the body's last ditch effort of survival when escape feels impossible. Even when you are writing and you begin to get into that cadence, it's important to pause and take care of yourself. And I'm going to give you some specific strategies on how to do that. So this is one way that I have chosen to tell my story through writing poetry and other literary works, as well as facilitating workshops to help others do the same. But there are so many different ways that you can write your story. And I just want to talk about them a little bit because when we think of publishing, right away, most people go to a book. And then there's a group of us that are like, oh my word, I don't have enough words for a book. And you probably do, but it's okay to feel like you don't because there are other opportunities, such as an anthology, which is a shared book of many voices. It could even come out in poetry, your own collection, or alongside other authors, and also true fiction. This is a story that's inspired by your life, but written with some creative distance. And there are reasons why we might want to do that, especially if folks who are living and attached to our story, we may want to make some modifications. Or it could also be a series of essays or reflection. Carolyn Spring is one of the best authors, in my opinion, of compiling essays and stories to share her work. So the point is that there is always so much to say, and you get to choose how to say it. and I'm moving to my Q&A time. But before I do that, I want to make sure you have the tools to help you write with your nervous system, not against it. The first one is timed writing. So instead of sitting down with pressure to write for hours, try setting a timer for 5, 10, 15 minutes, right? Then pause. Check in with your body. How am I feeling? Do I want to stop or do I want to keep going? Giving yourself these breaks also, they help to keep your nervous system from becoming overwhelmed because your body knows there is an end to it. When we are often in trauma, it does not feel like an end will come. You get to control this in the writing space. And the second one is having that anchor phrase. You guys heard my prayer that before I begin, I take a breath and I state that prayer to myself. You may say something like, "This is my story. I choose what to say." This grounds you in ownership and safety. And this final piece is audience awareness because that shifts how you write and what you write. It's just a simple question. When you sit down, if it's at your computer or it's with your journal, who am I writing to today? Sometimes it's just for you or you alone, and sometimes it is for someone else. Sometimes it's for a future book. But naming your audience helps you stay aligned with what feels safe in the moment. If I am having a journaling session, I know I am not proofreading my thoughts. I am just simply getting it out. And finally, the most important thing is returning to breath because breath is literally life. And you are always inhaling safety and you are exhaling release with the reminder that you are indeed here and now. Your story is yours, and you get to decide how it's shared, when it's shared, and with whom it's shared. Writing bravely and writing for post-traumatic growth is not about pushing your limits. It is not about pushing past beyond what your body is able. It's about listening to it. And that's where we find the healing and the transformation for ourselves and others. So I want to move on and kind of ask for some questions or reflections. If it's just a thought or something that kind of stirred in you, I saw, some things coming up in the chat, whatever it is, like this really is a safe space. And Kate is going to help facilitate that. And if you are here, just in case you have to go, there's one quick thing I want to share. If this information was like helpful for you, there is a free 3-day challenge. Like in real life, it's free. I'm not going to say, "Oh, no, give me $500." No, it's free. But just to help you go deeper into this information, and I'm going to put it in the chat, and I'll also send it to Kate to send out to you. So off to you, Kate, my friend, for the Q&A.
Thank you so much. What an amazing conversation. And I have to say a lot of my questions were really addressed. So I think you really nailed it. So thank you so much.
Mm.
So I would like to invite people to come off of mute and ask questions or make comments if you want. We did just have one small question, which was you mentioned an author a couple minutes ago of someone who does, I think, anthologies or no, collections of essays. Can you just say the name of that author again?
Carolyn Spring.
Carolyn Spring. Okay, that's what we got. So if you want to come off mute, maybe raise your hand if you can. I see, let's see, a couple people who maybe have come off mute, so maybe that's an indication that you want to speak. Um, Deborah, are you off mute? Is that what you,
Think so.
okay, go ahead.
First of all, I want to thank you for this presentation. It really resonated as real for me. I, especially the last couple of comments. I just completed a book, Between Wounded and Well, and after writing the book, I was just having a nice conversation with a friend, and she said, "You're different. You've changed. I've noticed since you finished the book, there's some change that happened in you. You're calmer, you're more settled. It's like you've gone through some transformation." And I think what that was exactly what this talk is about. It helped me um, kind of transform through a process of healing, almost like a catharsis in writing. That's what it became. And so tonight really validated for me what my friend had noticed in me after completing my book. And it was a book about a child with 9 out of 10 aces.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. There is something very, very powerful about getting our stories up and out, and we get to determine where it goes from there. Sometimes it is up and out in a journal. Other times, there is that feeling inside of you that's calling you to share. And when you begin to feel that, you can guarantee that there is someone waiting to hear the words that you have to share.
Thank you so much. I think Allison is also off mute. Is Allison Robinson?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Um, Thank you very much. This is just makes me feel good inside. I guess my question is if we have something that's written but are very nervous about pursuing publishing, what's your advice for that? What um would you recommend seeking out advice from a therapist, a friend, um, reaching out to an editor, a literary agent? What is kind of your advice on that? Trying to decide if everything that we've written needs to be out in the world or if it was just for us.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And I think we probably all land there or have landed there. And the suggestions you gave are absolutely what I would say. Talk to a therapist for sure. Probably
Yeah.
before going to an editor or even talking with a partner publisher, because I have the clinical background. When people come to me with works and I can kind of sense that maybe they aren't ready, I can coach them and kind of encourage them. What would it be like to hold this for 6 months? What would it be like to hold this for a year and come back to it? But we don't always encounter people who have that level of insight. So I would definitely say connect with a therapist. And then on a personal level, I would encourage you to go back and read what you wrote. Like I didn't do that first time 6 years ago, and notice what you feel in your body. Is there a place that still feels really tender? Where is there more to say? Where is there more to write? And our writing, once it comes to the point of publishing, should have an intentionality toward transformation. Why are you writing?
Hmm.
If we're just writing because we really need to get it out and we're like, angry or upset or whatever, and I have tons of journals that the world will never see with that in it, but that's why they're in a journal. Like as authors, we have such a God-given, rich, beautiful responsibility, opportunity to transform a reader's life. And we
Amen.
want to make sure our work is prepared to do that.
Thank you.
Yes.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Allison. Okay, go ahead, Refried Bean. I see your hand up.
Yes, thank you, JoLanda. I just wanted to tell you I love that prayer that you wrote about compassion and truth to transformation is awesome. I'm gonna pray it for myself. And for me, like the contempt struggle has been really extreme, and I just appreciate you sharing that.
Oh gosh, thank you. Thank you. And it is a
Thanks so much.
journey.
Thanks, Refried Bean. Okay, I think Janet, is you come off mute?
Yes, I'm off mute.
go ahead.
I am a firm believer that God leads you where you need to go. And I saw an advertisement for this, and I, I'm ready with the second book. My first book was a memoir, and I had several offers to publish it, but I think I need to hold back of the Blue Ridge Mountain Christian Writers Conference. Was helping me with some sensitivity training for my book because there was a few references that a couple of publishers didn't like because of my references to ethnicity and because of the time frame for when I wrote it. And the title of the book was Don't Make Me Remember. And it wasn't me that didn't want to remember. It's my sister who had blacked out some of our childhood trauma. And I have an editor, and I told my editor, hold that book back. I do not want my first book to be a memoir. And lo and behold, the co-founder, Edwina Perkins, she said, Janet, you write about abortion with such passion. Let me ask you, have you had an abortion? And I said, yes, but my husband, I don't have his permission to write about it. She said, appeal to him because Christian women need to have someone like you who has seen the forgiveness of God to write about it so that they can feel the forgiveness that I can tell that you have experienced from God. So I approached him. And if I had known what was going to happen next, maybe I wouldn't have done it. He left me. He lied to our children. We have 6 children, and the entire family abandoned me. I have 6 children and 10 grandchildren, and it's a year later now. So my second book is Here I Am Again, Lord. And I'll just give you a real nutshell.
Janet, just in the interest of time, just to maybe, because
I'll
we
be
have a
real
bunch
quick.
of other folks
I
here.
was put into a mental institution, not mentally ill, because my husband wanted a boy. He abused me, left me, abandoned me. And then I was put in jail even. So I got to experience a Job-like experience and talk about having to cling to the Lord, but also to really experience what it's like to forgive without being asked to forgive. And really having to live out your faith alone and come back from that and cling to the Lord. It's just been an experience like none other I've had before in my life, and to write about it, but to know that God knows my heart and he has not forsaken me, and
Yeah,
never will,
and I'll,
and
Janet,
never
I'll
will he
say
forsake.
to that, that's such a powerful story. Thank you for sharing. One of the things that I always encourage people to do, same question with Allison, when we're writing about those tough things,
Mhm.
right alongside a therapist. Make sure you
Oh no,
have that
I do have a
support that you
therapist,
need.
and one of the things she has taught me, she said, you need to get rid of people who are not supporting you. She said, you are too kind. You need to let go of people that are not standing in support of you. You
Mm.
just you need to get rid of the baggage. And she is teaching me to do that, to just let go of people that won't stand beside me. And it's amazing how many people you find out were fair weather friends. So you thought that they were your friends, but hey, they were not. And God will separate the sheep from the wolves. He will. And I had to change churches. Of course, the church my husband was the choir director and the organist of, they split. So that was an easy choice.
Janet, I'm going to interject again just because Janet, thank you so much for your sharing. We have a couple other
Yes.
folks who have their hands up, so I just want to make sure
Yes,
we have
thank
enough
you.
time because okay, thank you so
Yeah,
much
I
for
want to hear
sharing.
those too. Thank you.
All right, thank you so
Thank you.
much. Toby, I see your hand up.
Yes, I just want to say it sounds like, along with many others, that this is an exciting topic for me. I was so glad to see it pop up. Um, I started what I'm calling a trauma-informed creative writing groups this year. I've been leading one at our local library, and I'm also working toward volunteering inside our penitentiary and looking for other opportunities. Um, and anyways, I, if you have the interest, I would love to have a further conversation with you sometime, JoLanda. And I just appreciate seeing all the thought you've put into this, your structure, your format, because I've just kind of done my own thing from scratch. Um, and it's just amazing to see this, what you're putting together, what you're promoting, and absolutely keep talking about how story is transformational. Thank you.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you. And yes, would love to connect with you to learn more. Janet mentioned Edwina Perkins, and that brought something to mind. Love her. I have many friends in the traditional publishing world, and that is one route to take. And I have some thoughts around when it is our story and what that means. How do we want to do that? Do we want to have certain limitations around what we write, how we write, that creative liberty to just express ourselves? So, yes, Toby, let's connect.
Great, thank you. And I see Tessa's hand, and we also, I think Victress had come off mute. So let's go ahead to Tess, and then if Vitris wants to talk, we can go there. Go ahead, Tess.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for this, JoLanda and Kate. Really wonderful evening. My question has to do with, JoLanda, you were talking about having an anchor, like having an anchor for my soul as I write.
Mm-hmm.
And you have the prayer, which I love. But my question is, what are there other forms that that anchor can take, or is it mostly, do you find, in the form of like a prayer or something we say to ourselves?
Mm-hmm. That's an excellent question. The prayer component that I have, it is something that anchors me. And having words, if it's a prayer, an affirmation, something that we say because we're dealing in the world of words, that can be really helpful. Also, there may be an icon or an item. I have a full basket of things that I write with. And yes, there's a crossword puzzle in there because sometimes the words do not come. And will we continue to force our bodies and our brains to try to write, or do we lean into what our nervous system is asking for and take that pause? So there is some pinch me dough inside of there. There's my favorite journals, ink pens, paint markers, and all the things that I know. So if I'm writing and I get stuck, my eye just kind of ventures over. And sometimes it's to lean into a break. Other times it's just to pause and do the prayer. And I have that particular prayer on a mouse pad and also on a little tripod I had printed up so that I can see it.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. What great ideas. Okay, Victress, is that right? Go ahead.
I know people stumble over my name. I wanted to just say a couple of things. One, in terms of what the last answer, the drawing is really helpful. Sometimes just getting a big piece of paper and just start moving colors around if you're feeling, like you've been activated in some way as you're writing. So I just wanted to, kind of underscore what you just said too. But what I wanted to talk about is because I wrote a book that was in large part unpacking an incredible, lots of different traumas, rape and childhood trauma, but it was a story, there was a whole story. And I was kind of trial and error, in terms of the writing. It was like really hit or miss in terms of like working with my activated nervous system. So I really appreciate, I would have really found this useful 5 years ago, but it was published a year ago. And two things I want to say about that. One is that I have a hybrid publisher called Bold Story Press. And that was really helpful because I had the final word. And if you don't have the final word, like their editor wanted to take out all the swear words in my book. And I said, hello, these were things that people said. I said, these prisoners who are in the story that I worked with said, they didn't say, I need to get my stuff together, Anyway, that, and also be prepared once your book is out there. That's, I think, a very challenging time in terms of if you are somebody who is looking for love in all the wrong places all your life, your book gets out there and it's it's like you'd have no idea how the response is going to be. And sometimes it can be hurtful. So I think having some of these resources after is a good idea.
I
Mhm.
think that's a great point. I want to add to that. I had the same thought. When my first memoir came out, I felt incredible anxiety. And so maybe you can speak to sort of post-publication self-care.
Yeah, that's so good. And with my authors, it's not just a post-publication self-care, it's a pre-publication self-care. So literally throughout our modules, we ask those questions. Why are you writing? That multi-layered. Why are you writing? Because when we are sure on our why, nothing can shift or shake us, right? When people come in and they say those things, you got to have a why to return back to. What was this really about? And oftentimes, when we navigate that why, we can find out, was this about me getting approval? I love how you said that, Victress, looking for love in all the wrong places. I have a memoir that I started 6 years ago, got picked up by a traditional publishing house, and the same thing. There were certain things they wanted me to change. And I said, no, thank you. That's one of the biggest reasons I do partner publishing. And I have some traditionally published works as well. But when it comes to my story, like I want the ownership of that because it is my life lived. So that post-publication support, after our authors publish, they go through a process called Author Talk, where we look at success metrics, both tangible and intangible. One of the intangible success metrics that we look at that often keep them anchored is I'll have them write, after a reader reads my book, they will feel. Once a reader reads my book, their life will change by. And then I intentionally encourage them to look for those 2 or 3 responses, either through surveys or author talkbacks or pilot groups. And when they have that, they know I was successful before they hit 10,000 copy sales, right? Before they mount the platform with their book. What are your success metrics? How will you even determine success? There's so many brilliant writers who have published books and feel unsuccessful, but they haven't even determined what success looks like. So who said you weren't successful? You
You
know?
talking?
No, metaphorically.
Sorry.
Yes, but just what does that look like? I'm sorry, I can be really
Thank
pointed at.
you.
Kay, can I say something really quick?
Yeah.
Someone mentioned something about being an atheist and not leaning into scripture. I wanted to share with you um, my anchor. It is a prayer, um, and it ends with amen. But whatever you are leaning into for your wherever you draw your strength from, because we're talking about writing, we're talking about words. What words empower you, anchor you to stay steady? For me, as a woman of faith, like mine is tied to a prayer. But whatever the breath anchor is, whatever the mantra is that keeps you steady when we go through those traffic lights, our nervous system kind of navigating through our writing process, lean into that.
So I thought Corey in the chat also asked a really interesting question, which is if you do decide to publish your work and people, read about your trauma and then want to trauma dump on you and tell you all about their trauma, sort of how do you set boundaries with your readers that are healthy and help you maintain healthy boundaries?
That's really good. First thing you realize is that your book is more than a book. And because your book is more than a book, people are going to be drawn to you. They are going to work with you. You create a program and where it is ethical and kind and not, what do you call that? Not exploiting people. You let them enroll in either your monthly talk where you share more of your story or you lean and you set that boundary. Like you can engage with me this way, but I'm not available that way. The other thing, if you are writing a trauma story in the back of your book or on your website, click here for a list of resources to support you. Put a list of therapists on there because just because you are an author, it does not make you a therapist, nor do you have to be one. I am a therapist. And no, thank you. You cannot trauma dump on me because you've read my trauma.
Thank you for that. Cassandra came off mute. I don't know if I see Cassandra up there, but just want to see if you wanted to jump in. We're short
Um,
on time, so maybe just one more comment.
um, Really quick. So I'm getting into this writing thing, by way of God, like I'm called to it, I believe. And as I'm writing, like I start to feel like I've been told that I'm good at it. So when I write, like my thing is authenticity. Like I start to feel like I sound like somebody else, and then I shut down. So I'm asking, like, do you have any advice? Like, because I want to tell my story. Like I can make anything sound polished. I can tell a good story, and I know that. But I wanted to tell my story as authentically as possible without sounding like someone else. And so I find myself at a wall because I feel like I sound like someone else, and then I'm just like, and then I stop.
Hmm. So when you say you feel like you sound somewhat like someone else, do you know who you feel like you sound like?
I don't. Sometimes I feel like I sound like my granny, God rest her soul. Sometimes I feel like I sound like my grandmother, and I'm a woman of faith. I believe in the Holy Spirit, and my grandmother was a scholar. So I feel like I sound like her sometimes. And that's when I kind of feel like I sound like me. But then I start to feel like I'm writing, like I'm polishing it up, you know what I mean? And I really want to be raw about the things that I've gone through because that's the effectiveness and the impact and, the growth and,
Mhm.
the God in it. And so I really want to be as authentic, but I feel like I cater
Hmm.
to this imaginary audience type thing. And
That's
so
so
it's
good.
hard for me.
Yeah. So a couple really quick cliff notes. I would encourage you to identify who you are writing to, right? So that you don't have an imaginary audience, you have a perfect reader, the person that is waiting on your book. The other thing that I would encourage you to lean into is what feels uncomfortable about echoing some of the tone, the sentiments, the sound of your grandmother. Where might there be a deeper invitation to come closer to the Father through that? As a woman of faith, there are certain things that I write. I don't want to sound like me. I want to sound like the Father. I don't want it just to be JoLanda's words. I want to lean in and say, hey, Lord, what do you want to write to this person about that? So I would encourage you to really be curious about the discomfort with echoing, and also noticing if there is any trauma or anything that you may need to process that's connected with that. And I would love to read some of your writing.
Okay, thank you. So I heard lean into the discomfort, don't run from it. That's what I
Yes,
heard.
yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Great question and great conversation. There's so many great things here. Well, we are almost at time. So, JoLanda, I would just like personally to see, ask you if you have any final words of encouragement because you are one of the most encouraging people I know. And so I know you got something for us. But also just to reiterate the challenge that you mentioned that you're offering,
Mhm.
and just kind of any final thoughts you have. Again, I'm feeling really, really encouraged by this conversation. And particularly, I just want to say and thank you for your encouragement to write gently because I think
Yes.
that we can have this like macho, like we have to barrel through. And
Mm.
your real invitation to awareness of what's going on for us somatically as we're writing, I think is really really beautiful. So thank you. But also I'll hand it to you for a final word.
Okay, I love it. I love it. Thank you. The challenge, Anna, is just the Right to Heal. It's a 3-day challenge. If you click the link and fill out the survey, you'll get access to the challenge. It's free for real. And I'll also make sure that Kate has it. So the final thing that I would say is pay attention to the traffic light and notice when your writing is shifting and notice what you need. On top of that, I'll add you can write to heal. And when you write to heal, your words literally unlock doors for people to know that they have a right to heal. There are some people that don't know, and it doesn't matter if I write. My words are good. But if their story requires your voice, they'll be waiting on your words. So, right to heal.
Well, thank you so much. Again, let's say thank you to JoLanda Rogers, who's just an incredible, inspiring teacher and author and strategist and therapist and all these different hats that she wears, mother. So, this was just an incredible evening. There's so much positive feedback coming out in the chat. And again, I just think that this is such an important topic for so many of us, and to receive the encouragement to write to heal and to treat ourselves with self-compassion and kindness in the process is so wonderful. So thank you all so much. The chat, I'll put the link to the 3-day chat, the 3-day challenge into the chat again. And just to say thank you all so much for joining us and for participating. And a special thanks, of course, to our amazing speaker, JoLanda. So thank you.
Thank you.
Round of applause. All right. Thank you all again, and have a blessed evening, and be well.